Not too many better giveaways here in 2016 than the beach towel. Compliments of the folks at Pico. Give it out to all the youngsters coming to the ballpark. They've got the Galapagos gang, the Fanatic. Everybody is part of the beach towel giveaway. It's a great one on a hot afternoon here in South Philadelphia. The Phils wrap up this series with the Mets. It's Weekends with Schmidt, presented by Acme Markets. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy, along with Ben Davis and Mike Schmidt. We get ready for the finale of this three-game series. It's a tough matchup for the Phillies because Jacob deGrom is on the hill for the Mets. But if the Phillies can put together the at-bats they had last night today, they might come out a victor.
You're right, Tommy. You're right in my wheelhouse now. You know, these upper-level at-bats, concentration, grinding out at-bats to do the thing that the game situation calls for. In last night's game, first, you're going to see Cody Ashe right here. He went to 0-2, and we needed to get a runner in from third, and he reached down and hooked that ball and advanced the runner from second to third. Here's Maikel Franco, who stays close and clears his hips out and kind of throws a little, I wouldn't call it broken bat, but a bleeder over third for a big RBI, scores Borges. And you know, in last night's game also, Freddie Galvis was up with 2 out, missed a bunt to bunt the runner from second to third with an 0-2 count, rolled out to second base, advanced Chooch to third base, who scored on a wild pitch. Also, Ryan Howard hit a home run. That's how we got our 4 runs. We pitch well, we win 4-2.
And Ryan Howard gets a chance to play again this afternoon against Jacob deGrom. On the other side for the Phils will be Zach Eflin. You can throw out that Blue Jays game if you want because Zach Eflin's been a totally different pitcher since his Major League debut.
He has been excellent. I know that's a very, very gifted lineup they have in Toronto. Not taking anything away from them, but that was just a struggle for him. Since then, he has been dominant. He's really doing it with just the 2 pitches. Yes, he's a 4-pitch pitcher, but the fastball's been very good. What I like about it, he's up, down, east, and west with it, and he's working those 4 different quadrants, but he's been down in the zone. If you can pitch and pitch that effectively at Coors Field, you're going to have a lot of success.
Relied on his slider at Coors Field because of the break with his curveball wasn't there, but he hasn't really thrown his curveball over his last couple of starts. These are his last 5 starts. I mean, that's a big league ERA, 2.20.
That's an all-star Hall of Fame ERA right there. I'm not jumping the gun too soon on him, but he has made the adjustments. And what I like about it is to get rocked around the way he did in that first big league start, you get caught up in thinking, well, can I really hang here in the big leagues?
Yeah.
He's proven that he can.
3 walks in the last 27 innings, and of those 3, 1 is an intentional walk. So today is the final game of this 3-game series. deGrom's been very good. Despite the 5-4 record, he's making his 16th start of the year. The baseball's all shined up and ready to go. So are we when we come back. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. By Toyota. For great summer deals, visit your local Toyota dealer or buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. By Citizens Bank. The next time you have a question about money, don't keep it to yourself. Ask a citizen. And by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Learn more at IBX.com. Citizens Bank Park, getting a chance to start against the New York Mets for the first time in his career, coming off a very good outing his last time out against the Colorado Rockies. Plus, he spent some time here in Philadelphia during the break. Like a lot of people, got a chance to see Paul McCartney perform. So he's ready to go. Let's take a look at the T-Mobile greater coverage of baseball, and we're going to deviate from baseball a little bit. We're going to give you some highlights of the Irish Pub's Tour de Shore, featuring our very own Greg Murphy. There he is in the blue cap and the sunglasses. He's unscripted, folks. He's got a microphone. Watch out when he's unscripted and has a microphone. It begins in Center City, and the track will take them down to the Irish Pub in Atlantic City. There's Murph. He's got some water with him, making sure he stays hydrated. It's a slow start initially, and then they could break off as they go down toward the shore a little bit more. Right before Murph finished, his face was red, and his hands were cut up because he got a flat tire with 3 miles to go. But he has finished because there are folks there that can assist him in making sure that the bike is repaired. It's really like any other bike race.
You can't keep a good man down.
That's right. But they did reach, from what I understand, the $1 million mark in their fundraising. That is incredible. And thinking about all the things that have happened even today in Baton Rouge, you understand why it's so important and what they did this afternoon, or this morning and this afternoon. Let's take a look at the Mets lineup, brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Reyes, Granderson, and yes, Cespedes is playing. Neil Walker bats cleanup. James Loney 5th. Cabrera 6th. The bottom third of Lagares, Rivera, and DeGrom. And they will face Zach Eflin, 2-2 on the year, 4.08 ERA. 18 strikeouts. He's more of a contact pitcher. And facing the Mets for the first time. Our scouting report on Zach Eflin.
We'll sit right about 92, 93 miles an hour. 4-pitch pitcher. That first pitch is up for ball 1. 4-pitch pitcher. Pretty much fastball slider, though. Majority of his pitches.
Yeah, his last 2 starts, he's thrown his changeup and his curveball less than 3% of the time. Part of that was the altitude in Denver. Just didn't feel like he had command of the curveball. There's a fastball for strike 1. It's 2-1.
One thing I like about him is he works fast. Gets that ball, throws it. Not a lot of messing around out there.
Fly ball left field. Cody Ashe is out there. He says he has it lined up. And one away.
He was a busy man last night, and he starts the game off with another fly ball today.
Time now for our Nissan keys to today's ball game.
Well, mine is an offensive key, of course. Make the Grom work. You know, let's not make easy outs. Let's value our bats every pitch. Make him get the ball up in the strike zone so you can do some damage.
And then with Zach Eflin, get lefties off the plate. He needs to pitch inside effectively.
Well, here is a lefty in Curtis Granderson who takes a strike. It's 0-1. Granderson 2 for 8 in the series so far. He has scored a couple runs. Overall hitting .239. 0-2. Phillies play him to pull with 3 infielders on the right side. Off the hands, foul over the Mets dugout.
Coming in there at 94 on that 0-2 pitch. That's a good sign. Wow.
And we showed you in the open what he's done since his initial start against the Blue Jays, when he allowed 8 earned runs in 2 2/3. He has gone 32 2/3, now 33 innings. He's allowed 8 earned runs for an ERA that's now under 2.2. He's established a very nice presence. That ball is ripped down the right field line. Foul. Just foul, says Tim Timmons. Now that is reviewable if the Mets want to take a look at it underneath, because it's beyond the first or third base bag in the air. Tim Timmons, one of the veteran umpires in this 4-man crew. It looks like he got it right,
yeah,
from that vantage point.
Not fouled by much, though, like you said, Tom.
Rupp wants the ball down, and it is down. And foul over toward the camera well. Another fly ball to left field. Odubel may call Ashe off on this one. Nope, Ashe's going to take charge.
Ashe's setting a record for fly ball catches here the last 2 nights.
And I love that changeup after a breaking ball, because you see it come out of the pitcher's hand. You just saw a breaking ball, which has that different spin on it. You see the changeup. Well, you don't see the changeup come out of his hand. Same rotation as the fastball. You're out in front. You pop it up.
Well, we got a minute, Tommy. Ben, just congratulations to why am I drawing?
Henrik Stenson.
Henrik, yeah, I'm sitting there watching him for the last 4 hours. I couldn't think of his name. For those golf fans out there, we've been watching around the booth and in the office this morning. One of the greatest days in golf in history, really. These two gentlemen, one shot 65, and I believe one shot like 62.
It was pretty incredible.
They'll be talking about these 2 rounds of golf for many years to come. So congratulations to Henrik Stenson for winning the British Open.
Cespedes takes it side. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Very effective pitch right there to Cespedes.
Cespedes has been battling a sore quad, so he has not been able to play his beloved golf over the last several days. He did make the All-Star team, but did not participate. Out to right center field. Peter Borges says he has it lined up. Flips the sunglasses up and down. And the side is retired. 3 fly ball outs for Zach Eflin. We'll move to the bottom of the 1st. Mets nothing. Phillies coming up. Philadelphia Phillies, who he's had a lot of success against during his young career. His velocity is back where it was supposed to be at the start of the year. Let's take a look at the Phillies lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Herrera, Borges, and Ashe, followed by Franco, Howard, and Rupp. And the bottom third is the normal bottom third. Galvis 7th, Hernandez 8th, and Zach Eflin at the pitcher spot 9th. They will face DeGrom, who is 5-4 on the year, but an earned run average of 2.61. He's back to a strikeout per inning pitched. And we saw him earlier this season, Ben. He was at 91-92 with his fastball. Now he's at 94-95 with his fastball.
He's gotten that velocity back up, and that velocity really helps as he throws that heater about 60% of the time. 4 pitches, but very good numbers against the Phillies, and very good day game numbers as well. We'll get into that later.
28-year-olds. Out of Ormond Beach, Florida, and Stetson University. Grew up about 30 miles or so from where Zach Eflin grew up. He's also 6 years older than Eflin. Facing Odubel Herrera, who's 1 for 8 with a couple runs scored in this series. Lifetime, Odubel does have 3 hits against DeGrom.
Weird to see that average at 290.
It is weird. For most of the year, his average has been up over 300. The Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Ken Millhouse of Maytown, Pennsylvania. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game. Ken will win $100. Stop by McDonald's today and enjoy the new McPick 2 for $2.50 menu. I'm loving it.
Good luck, Ken.
Hope Ken wins money right now.
I'll take a double.
Well, you got a good pitch for it, guys, right here.
Well, as Ben said, he throws fastball most of the time, so this is a fastball count. Fly ball left center field. It's not deep. And Lagares makes the catch. One away. Peter Bourjos is coming up.
What I don't like about him lately, and you see that average coming down, is all the fly balls. A lot of balls in the air for Odubel.
Yeah, he's usually good at making that adjustment. He's 5 or 6 fly balls in the last, 2-3 games. Lots of left field. Means he's not driving down on it like he was when he was hot there about a week ago.
Seems like he's out in front of a lot of pitches. He's getting to the point of contact. He's making it too far out in front. Bat head is dipping, and he's getting a lazy fly ball.
One ball and no strikes to Bourjos, who is 1 for 8 in the series. His 1 is a triple. His on-base streak came to a close last night. He did reach on an error, but he had reached base safely in 22 consecutive games before last night, with a hit, a walk, or a hit batsman.
It's a heck of a feat. Start a new streak right here.
That's basically what he did when his hitting streak came to a close. He started a new one, which ended last night. 3 balls, no strikes. Just underway here in Philadelphia. DeGrom this year has only 1 game in which he's allowed more than 3 earned runs. That was on the 21st of May against the Milwaukee Brewers. That's how good he's been. I mean, he's got a big time ERA of 2.60 after the first out today. So those are the splits. Great start in April, even though the velocity wasn't there. No run support in June. And a strikeout for the second out here at the bottom of the second, or bottom of the first, I should say. I think Cody Ashley's coming up.
One thing I could not stand is when I had a 3-1 count on a pitcher and end up striking out. It was, you get a 3-1 pitch and may have chased ball 4 there, did Peter, but
He might have chased it on a 3-1 pitch, I thought. Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Oh, man.
About 3-0, which he was.
She takes one high. Cody has 2 hits in the series, an RBI and a walk, 4 hits overall against DeGrom. Off speed pitch. DeGrom is 10 games over 500 in the early part of his career. Last year in the postseason, Mets went to the World Series. He was 3-1 with a 2.88 ERA. It wasn't until the World Series where he actually got hit around by the Royals. Gave up 4 earned runs in 5 1/3. He was dominant in the first 2 rounds of the postseason.
you look at him, there's just not a whole lot there. I walked by him in the clubhouse yesterday, and I think a stiff wind would blow him right over.
Listed at 6'4" and 180 pounds. Two balls and 2 strikes.
Well, Well, they're seeing some pitches. Like yesterday was, day before yesterday, it was 8 pitches in the first inning.
Yeah.
Today we're up to 16.
Yep, number 17 is a swinging strike. Ashe is down. Phillies go down in order. We've played one. We'll head to the second. Marlins, what a pitching matchup tomorrow. Jose Fernandez on the hill for the Marlins. Aaron Nola on the hill for the Phils. You can get tickets for all 4 games by going to Phillies.com. A reminder that Thursday is Star Wars night, so there's a special theme night option when you go to Phillies.com. We start the second. Neil Walker leads it off and takes strike 1. Walker had a 3-run home run in game 1 of this series. That helped the Mets take game 1. 1 for 7 overall. 0-2.
These are the counts, and I alluded to it last night, where you can be very effective in keeping your pitch count down. You get 0-2 count, put somebody away. I'm not saying you have to do it on the 0-2 pitch, but keep it down to 4 pitches.
And a strike 3 call.
Or 3.
Neil Walker did not like that call by the home plate umpire.
Or sometimes you're not trying to put him away, and you do.
It looks good to me.
What's wrong with that?
Good.
That's below the belt. Oh, it's above the belt.
That's still a strike.
It's
though.
below the
strike.
It's below the number 20.
Catches plate. He will go back and look at that in the video room, then come back out and say, you know what, Pat Hoberg, my bad. You were right.
There's James Loney. Loney is 2 for 7 in this series with a double. He's got his socks pulled high today.
Yeah, gone with the old school socks. Not so sure how good that looks. Tommy, what do you think?
Well, with the high tops, it's kind of I don't know.
Yeah, you go stirrups, you got to go low spikes.
You got to drop those pants a little too, don't you?
A little low, and it's 3-0. Today's ball game is also available in Spanish. Just use the SAP button on your television or change the language through the menu on your cable box. Guides that one in, 3-1. Ground ball off the glove of Eflin. Loney doesn't run all that well. Eflin makes the play, and it goes right on by Ryan Howard. And Loney's going to get to second base. That'll be the 8th error for the Phillies pitching staff this year. Infield single, E1 to allow Loney to get to second.
His old high school instincts said, I can still get this guy, I can still get this guy. He knocks it down. It would have been a base hit up the middle most likely, but this would have been a good time for Freddie or Cesar to yell, hold it, you know, no throw, no throw. You got to communicate that to the pitcher sometimes. Or each other. You should always be talking like that, especially you have a good view of the guy going down to first base, so you could tell him not to make a throw.
Oh, we saw the Phillies capitalize on the mistake by Asdrubal Cabrera last night, and the 3 runs they scored in Game 1 were because of an error that Loney was charged with. So now with Cabrera up, let's hope the Phillies can limit the damage here. And a breaking ball drops in for strike 1. It's 0-1. Cabrera 0 for his last 26 with runners in scoring position. Way upstairs, 1-1.
I got home last night. My wife said to me, "Is it hard saying Asdrubal Cabrera and Odubel Herrera?" And I said, I never thought about that.
Now it is.
Now it is. Thanks for bringing it up.
Out to right field. Peter Bourjos there to make the catch. Loney caught off the bag, but he'll get back. And there are 2 outs.
Well, he hit it hard enough. Now he's 1 for 27. Stay with him.
I don't know if Loney didn't see that right away.
Zach got away with one there. That ball was elevated. Cabrera smoked it to right. Luckily right at Peter Bourjos.
And now Lagares getting a chance to play again today. He's walked a couple times in this series. 2 for 5 with 2 walks. And a slider. 0-1.
Well, I like how he's got command of that slider now. It's 2 batters in a row that get over slider for strike 1.
Yeah, the opposition hitting .282 against the slider, 167. Curveball, though, the opposition hitting .500 against it, which is part of the reason why he put it aside. He's ahead, no balls and 2 strikes to Lagares. .96 on that fastball.
Pretty good making contact with that 96-mile-an-hour high fastball. Most people swing through that pitch if they swing at it.
You see him dot a fastball 4-seamer down and away right here.
Tried another slider and he pulled it outside. It's 2-2. Not a bad spot.
Close.
Just off the outside part of the plate. Down the right field line. Bourjos on the run. This could be trouble. It is. It's a fair ball. And the Mets will take the lead. Lagares on his way to third. And he'll get there with an RBI triple. 1-0 New York.
Well, he got away with that 2-2 pitch, not swinging at it, got it called a ball. He got a little bit of fastball middle in or something like that. Fought it off down the right field line. Game of inches. Line drive earlier was just foul. That was actually right on the inside corner. Good 2-strike hitting right there. Just fair.
That is a nice piece of hitting. Get a pitch. He obviously missed a spot there. I want to get that ball on the outside part of the plate.
Second triple for Lagares. Now Rene Rivera hitting just a .187. He does have 3 homers. And he takes a little low.
I have to ask you, is it Syndergaard or DeGrom that's the really good hitter?
They're both good.
They're both good, yeah. Syndergaard's the one who hit the home run against the Phillies last year to straightaway center field.
That was a bomb.
DeGrom, though, was a shortstop in college, so DeGrom this year is just 1 for 25. So maybe Syndergaard's passed him in that category. And a line to right field. Peter Bourjos will come in to make the catch. Side is retired. The Mets do strike first, though. They get the RBI triple by Lagares. They leave one over third. We'll head to the bottom of the second. 1-0 New York on top. That's why he's determined to make his latest chance as a starter pay off. Watch an all-new Phillies clubhouse tomorrow at 11 right here on CSN. 1-0 Mets on the RBI triple by Lagares. So as we go to the bottom of the second, it'll be Maikel Franco, Ryan Howard, Cameron Rupp. 4, 5, and 6. Lagares, who played the first 2 games because of the Cespedes quad injury, he's had a good series, so they kept him in for day 3. Cespedes playing left field. Normally Cespedes would be in center field. Here is Franco. Franco 1 for 8 in the series with a couple RBIs. Takes a breaking ball and it's 1-0. Away, 2-1. How about DeGrom last year? With all of his success, he had a whip of under 1 for the entire year. 14 wins, but a walk and hit per innings pitched under 1. Loney has room over toward the dugout, makes the catch, 1 away. Here's Ryan Howard. Last night he brought the lumber. Brought to you by Yellowwood brand pressure treated pine. Bam.
Elevated off-speed pitch, and he did not miss it. Posits that into the Phillies bullpen.
career number 370. That's Yellowwood bringing the lumber. Tied Gil Hodges on the all-time list.
They had that home run at 538 feet on the air on radio this morning. I think they got about 100 foot too much on that day. What do you think?
Well, that may have been one of the longest home runs in baseball history if it was that long. It went a pretty good way. 538 would have been out near Campos or Seasons Pizza.
538.
Do you find it unusual? I mean, that Ryan now is playing 2 games in a row. In sort of, we were under the impression that Tommy Joseph was going to be the first baseman, right? And Ryan was going to play occasionally, but I see he's back in the lineup for a second day in a row now. We got a tough pitcher tomorrow night too in Fernandez.
I think Tommy will be back in there tomorrow against Jose Fernandez. 2-2 to Howard. Now Howard has faced DeGrom. DeGrom is a challenge for a lot of guys. I think Pete liked the way Ryan swung the bat yesterday, so figured he'd give him a second day.
Remember the ball he hit to left field, to the warning track in left field, and also the broken bat to right was a good swing, just off the edge a little bit.
There's a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and Howard is down looking. He just may have been fooled on that. It looked like a decent pitch.
Almost like it was in a blind spot underneath his hands or something. And the catcher was asking for it low and away, and knee high on the plate. Tough pitch.
Yeah, he definitely missed his spot on it, but it was a strike.
Rene Rivera, not known for his bat, but he is very, very good receiving the baseball. He can present a pitch to an umpire very well. Soft hands.
Ground ball to second, and Walker's up with it. Easy inning for Jacob deGrom. 10 pitches, 6 up, 6 down here in the second. We'll head to the third. 1-0. Mets on top. Go to the fans section for all the information. Please submit your answer on the subject line. Guys, the question is this: which Mets closer had an 0-8 record and 38 saves in 1998? The man was 0-8, and he had 38 saves in 1998. Answer will be revealed a little later on. Here is Jacob deGrom to lead it off, and deGrom fouls it off the left side, 0-1. deGrom, as we mentioned, 1 for 25 so far this season. Back to the mound. That's right. Wall of Fame night is getting closer. We are less than a month away from Jim Thome being inducted into the Phillies Wall of Fame. It's Friday, August 12th, when the Phillies take on the Rockies. A commemorative print free to all fans. Compliments of Toyota. Order your tickets now by going to Phillies.com. You've been hushed for secrets, Mike, on that, on the ceremony?
No, it's a fun weekend. Is that what you mean, Wall of Fame weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I know surprises for Jim. There's people that he doesn't know are coming in.
You mean This Is Your Life, Jim Thome?
Yeah, that's it.
I know a couple. I don't even know if I'm allowed to mention them.
No, I don't think you are. Privately, maybe. Got to imagine that Charlie's going to be obviously up on stage, so there's got to be somebody else that'll pull the drape out in the when the plaque is put up there, because Charlie would be out on stage.
I'll give you a hint. It's one of Jim Thome's favorite all-time ball players.
All right, so there you go. Everybody can Google that, and we can figure it out. 3 balls and 1 strike to Reyes. Swing and a miss. Swung right out of his shoes. It's 3-2. Reyes fly to left his first time up.
I Googled Jim Thome's career statistics just to refresh my mind on them. 612 home runs.
Yeah.
7th on the all-time list.
Here are his Phillies numbers. 101 home runs.
What impressed me as much as anything was that he has a career .402 on base percentage.
That is amazing. I mean, to walk as many times as he walks.
16. Oh, here's another one. 1,699 RBI. When you try to find one more,
could not linger for another one. Off speed pitch. Reyes down on strikes. Strikeout number 2 for Eflin.
I believe that was a changeup there, and that's something I'd like to see him throw a little bit more coming into today's game, only 8.1% of the time. But this comes out of his hand very nicely. See it just diving away from Jose Reyes, way out in front. Same arm speed. It's a very nice pitch there.
Granderson takes at the knees. It's 0-1, 94.
Could that have been any of it easier release? I mean, that was just like he was out there yawning. Here it is. I'll just hand this ball to you, Cameron.
I actually think that's the way he's been. I don't know if you guys agree with this.
No, I agree 100%. That's kind of the way he pitches. He kind of pitches like he's sitting in an easy chair in the living room.
But he throws that 3-2 changeup to Reyes, and then he throws it 0-1. So I really think that could be more of an effective pitch for him. It comes out of his hand nicely. See Granderson out in front of that last pitch.
And a fastball a little high, and it's 1-2.
Yeah, that changeup and that kind of like slow wind up and boom, 94-mile-an-hour fastball. Very effective. We talked about it yesterday. I believe a great deal that and it's not used as much as I think it should be or will be someday, and that's a change of wind-up speed. In other words, or the turning of the back or looking away from the hitter, but you know, just varying, almost like Louis Tiant used to do. Remember? And what's
Johnny Cueto?
Johnny Cueto. I was just trying to think of his name. We talked about him yesterday. It really turned him into a premier pitcher.
Fly ball to deep right center field. Borges going back. It is long gone. Granderson with his 16th home run of the year. And the Mets now lead it 2-0.
Yeah, while we're talking about how good Zach looks, he caught a fastball and hit it hard enough to get it out in right center.
Yeah, that ball was touched. Gets that foot down early. Mike was talking about it last night. Kind of rocks back and smokes it out to right center.
Estimated distance 415 feet. Now Cespedes, and he takes high. It's 1-0. Well, there are a couple pitches that were close that Eflin wanted. And this one got too much of the plate.
Ball's up.
Fly ball to right. Borges comes in. Sidewinds around a little bit. So single runs for the Mets in the second and the third. This one on the Curtis Granderson home run has given them a 2-0 lead on a hot afternoon here in South Philadelphia. We'll be back with the bottom of the third. By your Delaware Valley Honda dealers. Hurry to your local Del Val Honda dealer. Visit DelValHondaDealers.com. By Jefferson. Call 800-JEFF-NOW or visit jefferson.edu. And by Chevrolet. Visit your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. Bottom of the third, it's 2-0 Mets on top. And Freddie Galvis will lead it off. It'll be Galvis, Hernandez, and Eflin. And the first pitch from DeGrom is up high, 1-0. Freddie's got a hit and 8 at bats during this series. His average at 231. Popped up foul off the third base line. Galvis has excellent numbers against DeGrom. It's a limited amount of ABs, just 11, but he's 5 for 11. And it's 1-2.
A good one to hit there. If I'm looking at Freddie Galvis right now, there's no way I'm going to throw him a pitch. That was a mistake there by DeGrom, but I'm not challenging him with anything on the inside corner. Seems like he's pulling off everything, trying to pull everything. Out and around the baseball.
Yeah, you're right. Until he proves that he can hit the ball the other way or up the middle, out of the air, on the line or on the ground somewhere, just keep challenging him on the outer half of the plate.
Floats that one out to right center field. Lagares covering ground and makes the catch.
We closed on that well.
He did. He was shaded over toward left center, had a crossover to right center. So one away. Cesar Hernandez is coming up. That brings us to our Coors Cold Hard Facts. And it's about Jacob DeGrom. He's 14-3 with an ERA of under 2 and 26 career day game starts, as Ben alluded to. The best daytime ERA among qualified major league pitchers over the last 3 seasons.
That is amazing.
Do you have any theories on why? Is it
just loves the daytime?
I guess so. Is he tougher to see?
What could he do at Wrigley?
Yeah. Doesn't that tire everybody out eventually?
Truth of the matter is, I mean, if you were to compare daytime hitting to nighttime hitting, I'd say daytime hitting probably affords some issues. Background clouds, getting up early in the morning, coming to the park.
Lagares tracks that one down. 2 outs.
Really the first hard hit ball off DeGrom today. I like playing day games. I really did. Enjoyed it. especially when you have a good one. You can, you know, personally, you get to savor it a bit longer.
Eflin takes low. It's 1-0. Eflin is 2 for 12. He has one double. Back toward the middle, and the first base hit of the day is off the bat of Zach Eflin. So the Phillies do have a base runner here in the bottom of the third. And that'll bring us to the top of the order in Odubel Herrera.
Now we don't have to worry about that thing.
The no-no? I figured somebody was going to take care of it eventually. Odubel flied to center his first time up. Herrera now 3 for 12 against DeGrom.
Day games. I used to love those. See, what are the day games in Dodger Stadium? They had those cake donuts. Mewey? I don't know what. I'm just trying to think what's good about day games. I was never a day game guy.
You hit better in day games though, Mike. I know you had more night games, but you hit better in day games. Yeah, you hit 278 in day games, 263 in night games.
I'll be darned. Maybe that was the difference in playing at Wrigley Field. That helped.
He did have some good games at Wrigley.
Oh, did he? I would love coming home from school and watching those Phillies Cubs games. It always seemed like it was a 15-14 affair.
Why are you making Mike feel old? That you're coming home from school watching his games.
I'm just.
Because I am. He could be my son. Easily.
But it was always like that. It's like you check the schedule, and I had it posted on my wall in my bedroom when the Phillies were going to be at Wrigley. You get home, just rush home from school, throw it right on.
I think we were more fortunate as youngsters because we had TV and there were more day games. I mean, for us.
Yeah.
So growing up, whose poster did you have on your wall when you were a kid?
Benito Santiago.
Oh, okay.
Did you really?
I did.
Throw from the knees, right?
I did. Benito Santiago.
Spinner back to the mound. DeGrom flips over to first. The side is retired. No runs, one hit, and one man left. We head to the fourth. 2-0. Mets on top. Rentals and hidden fees. Call WB Mason and order all natural Blizzard spring water available in 5-gallon bottles in small packs at a price you'll love. Exclusively from who but WB Mason. Well, we do flash back to a day game at Wrigley Field. That was a pretty special one back in April of 1976. Sun was not glaring then. Poor Rick Russell. One was longer than the other.
Throw something else, would you?
Opposite way there. Who was that? Dick Ruthven? Who was that? The
guy named Garman.
Garman, okay. Out to left
There's
center
one
field.
in the basket.
The basket is your friend, Michael.
Sure was.
Just so strong at the point of impact.
Well, you know, back
just-
then we didn't do a lot of what we call core hitting. You know, our swings weren't sort of energized by the core as they are with today's hitters. And, you know, it was more of a wrist, you know, use your hands, use your wrists. And I kind of had a tendency to kind of hit out around the ball, and I got a lot out of it, but I'd never teach that to anybody now. Never.
That style?
My style, my
really?
old style, no.
Neil Walker leads it off. He struck out looking his first time up, and he fouls it away. Back then, though, if you did any kind of clinics, would you teach that? Or was that?
I probably did, thinking it was the way to hit, but it's not.
The ball's at 2 strikes to Walker.
I mean, if you watch that video of me right there and you say compared it to Michael Franco, two totally different types of swings at the ball. You know, Franco's is more core related, you know, full turn. Herrera, same way, full turn of like the abdomen through the ball, finish way over here, and mine was more of a, you know,
Finish
more
down.
of a handsy, armsy swing.
Off the hands, left side of the infield. Galvis and Franco are there, and it's Galvis.
That's the little charade I was telling you
Honestly,
about.
you never know who's going to make the catch when they do that. You really don't.
Well, it's either Galvis or Franco. It's Galvis, it's Franco. Oh, it's Galvis.
Yeah, it should be the shortstop.
And then they have a little chat about it. See, they have a little. They choreograph that stuff, you know, in the clubhouse.
I guess so.
All right, here we go.
Well, if you're not having fun, there's no sense in playing.
I think they know that we're all confused up here, especially now.
They probably are. Here's James Loney. Loney reached on a single and an error his first time up, and then came around to score the first run. Loney has scored 14 runs. Lucas Duda for the Mets is their normal first baseman. There is hope that he'll be back at some point. 2 balls and no strikes. Terry Collins had good news that Syndergaard threw about 20 pitches in a bullpen, and he felt okay. It was nothing earth-shattering, but he still threw. Cody Ashe has Loney played perfectly, makes the one-handed grab, 2 outs. Follow Phillies baseball live with the MLB.com at-bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment with live game video highlights, StatCast news, and more. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone and tablet. So 2 outs, and Asdrubal Cabrera will be the batter. That'll go foul down the left field line.
I wonder how Zach Eflin managed to avoid all of those little fidgety things that pitchers do and not making them part of his repertoire.
Yeah, he is pretty concise with the way he stands, the way he operates, how fluid he is.
Nice pitch. Now double up in there. Think you can hear me?
Well, it depends. If you stand up, you might. Cesar Hernandez stays down on it, and a 1-2-3 4th inning for Zach Eflin. He's retired 4 in a row since the home run by Granderson. We move to the bottom of the 4th. It's the Mets up by 2 over the Phils. Go Phils. Last of the fourth inning here at Citizens Bank Park. The sun is out. And Jacob deGrom has allowed one hit. That was to Zach Eflin. He'll face Borges, Ashe, and Franco, 2, 3, and 4 as we head to the bottom of the fourth inning. Borges hits it off the end of the bat foul, and it's 0-1.
Yeah, those Galapagos gang towels are coming in handy today, especially down the right field line. It's a warm one.
A lot of smiling faces walking through the stands today after those beach towels were given out. Broken back, ground ball. This still could be a tough play for Cabrera. Borges is thrown out rather easily on that.
Might have got out of the box slow. Sometimes when you pull the ball, your weight isn't going across the plate. Yeah, I thought it'd be a little tighter than that.
There's one of those beach towels that youngster's keeping close to him, and that youngster's also covering his head. Boy, those 14-year-olds grow mustaches early, don't they? There's Cody Ashe, who struck out his first time up. Bunts toward the third base side. deGrom bare hands and flips on one hop. That's an excellent play. It was a good idea by Cody because of the shift, if he can make it happen. But that was a really good play by the pitcher.
Just a little bit harder, and this is deGrom's going to put that in his pocket, but it's a good play by deGrom. I think even a better play by Loney makes that look easy. Very soft hands at first base.
First of all, if Loney stretches, does he have to short hop this ball?
Let's see. Yeah, he can be close.
Look how far back he stays.
Yeah, he did that yesterday.
Secondly, remember yesterday we were talking about Cody? He cue shot his ball down there and said, why don't you do it more often? But don't you have to kind of like get yourself a ground ball out of it?
Right.
You got to get it away from the pitcher.
Yes. All it has to do is get past him, and that's for sure single.
And a liner to left field that's right at Cespedes. And another easy inning for deGrom. 4 in the books here in Philly. Both pitchers are doing a nice job. That was a 5-pitch inning for Jacob deGrom. Run of the third, the final game of this 3-game series. Each team has won a game so far. Pete Buchanan is our Geico quote of the day. He said, "It's good to win. I didn't want to hear the Mets fans." This was after yesterday's victory, as Odubel Herrera comes in and makes an awkward grab on a line drive by Lagares. Ball was kind of knuckling out toward him.
I was going to say, you can see, I could actually see it up here, and that means that ball was hit hard, real hard.
Well, the Mets fans were loud yesterday or the day before when they were leading and winning the game.
Thing knuckled all the way out to him. He watched it in his glove. Really nice. That's a tough play.
So with one out, Rene Rivera, who lined to right field his first time, takes outside. It's 1-0. Little cue shot.
Take that, ball.
Both teams have had their fair share of those already today.
Good communication there by Cameron and Zach to let Cameron take that.
Splashdown on there.
Sure did.
They keep that pretty soft out there. They used to keep that so
Depends on
soft
who's
the ball
pitching.
might bury in it.
Yeah.
In Wrigley Field.
I never thought they did, but today and even a couple other times it looked pretty soft out there.
Depends on who's pitching.
Yeah.
I remember I used to get so frustrated at times. You have a good sinker baller on the mound, and if you're at away park, that home groundskeeper would just douse it in front of home plate, deaden that ball even more. Used to upset me. And that really can make a difference whether or not a ball gets through the infield.
Here's the 0-2 pitch to DeGrom, and he lines it foul. Toyota Major League Scoreboard. The Marlins are heading here after their game today against the Cardinals. Matt Holliday's home run has given the Cards the 1-0 lead. As DeGrom lines a single up the middle. That's just his second hit of the year. By the way, Ichiro will come into the series against the Phils with at least 2,992 hits. He already has a hit today, a leadoff single.
Well, there's a good chance they won't let him get his 3,000th here unless they're on the road for a while.
I had to watch Tony Gwynn get his 3,000th in Montreal in front of about 1,200 people.
I saw the highlights of that.
Oh, felt bad for T.
Pitch outside, 1-0. Reyes is 0 for 2. He's flied to left. He is struck out. I think Ichiro is one of the great stories of 2016 because there was a point after the first month of the season. As that one is lined to left center field. It'll split the gap and go to the wall. DeGrom runs well. He's already at third. He's a long strider. Galvis takes the throw in shallow left center field, and he'll score standing. RBI double for Reyes. 3-0 New York.
He does run well. You're exactly right. That long stride, he was flowing around those bases.
5 RBIs for Reyes. It's being added to the Mets roster.
Started off as a harmless inning. DeGrom gets a single up the middle, and then Reyes comes up, deposits one in the left center gap, but DeGrom was rolling. He's like, I'm going to get another run for myself.
Well, he runs well. In fact, strides were perfect around the bases. Very impressive.
Well, now Granderson with a runner at second. A run in already here in the top of the 5th. Granderson with a long home run his last time up.
Yeah, this was estimated at 415. I'm thinking that was a bit farther than that. That clears everything, gets into that Phillies bullpen.
It's
15 home runs now for the Mets here at Citizens Bank Park this year.
Really, what a harmless inning. Started off,
and he was ahead 0-2.
2 strikes, 0-2 on the pitcher.
DeGrom held his swing on that one breaking ball. Inside. And now he's got the speed of Reyes at second base. They throw behind. Nope, they fake behind. Three and one to Granderson. You've got Cespedes on deck.
He's flown out to right field twice.
Granderson draws a walk on a close pitch, and it puts runners on first and second with 2 outs. Bob McClure going out to the mound to talk to Zach Eflin. Lagares lines out. Rivera hits a little squib in front of the plate. He goes 0-2 to DeGrom, who fouled one pitch off down the left field line. And that check swing on that slider, that was the pitch. Home plate umpire Pat Hoberg will break up the conversation. Phillies fans, next time you want to grab Phillies seats, get the StubHub app. Not only will you find seats you'll love, whenever you want, you can find the best seat for your buck when you sort by best value. We take the price and location of seats and show you which tickets at StubHub give you the best deal. So get the StubHub app today. Cespedes, as Ben said, flied out to right field twice. He's got runners on first and second. In the dirt. Good play by Rupp. Runners go. Pitches outside. Rupp's throw is high. And a double steal.
There are 2 right guys to do it with. Nothing Cameron can do.
Big jump.
Big jump, and it was a terrible pitch to throw on. If you're Cameron Rupp, that ball's down and away. You want to get your momentum going towards third base. You have to make sure you catch that ball down and away first.
3-1.
A lot of sliders today.
If Walker on deck, I'm going to be careful here with this one. That'll be ball 4, back-to-back walks, and that'll bring Walker up.
You know, that 2-out steal of third, people might wonder, it's a great play as long as the guy on first comes with you.
Right.
Puts 2 men in scoring position. He stole it easily. Big at bat in the game here. Keep this game at 3-0. It's very gettable.
Like Andrew Bailey's about to get loose in the pen.
Reyes over at third base, Granderson at second, and Cespedes at first. Ground ball foul, and it's 0-1. Ryan Howard at first base waits on this one. Eflin's there to cover. Side is retired. The Mets, though, do score a run. They leave them loaded. We'll head to the bottom of the 5th inning. The Mets on top of the Phils, 3-0. Citizens Bank minor league reports. Lehigh Valley defeated Buffalo 4-3. J.P. Crawford continued his hot hitting. 2 hits, including a double, and RBI, and a run scored. Dylan Cousins had 2 doubles and a couple runs scored as Reading defeated Trenton 4-1. Scott Kingery 4 hits for Clearwater. And Williamsport defeated Vermont 5-4 in 11 innings. Lehigh Valley is currently trailing Buffalo 4-0 in the 5th. Lehigh Valley's won 7 of 9. And they are 15 over 500 since the 1st of June. Ryan Howard leads it off against Jacob deGrom, who starts him off with a soft pitch. deGrom's only thrown 46 pitches as we begin the 5th. Got Howard looking his first time up. Comparison of pitchers. 88 pitches for Eflin through 5. 1-2. Ball's pulled toward Loney, who knocks it down, and he'll just take it over to the bag. Only one hit so far. It's come off the bat of Zach Eflin. That was in the third. One hit for the Phillies. And Cameron Rupp is due up.
Ball hit hard right there by the big piece, and James Loney is so smooth at first base. He really is.
He's a nice player. A little Keith Hernandez action.
He does.
Who's right in the booth next door to us.
Never fails. Catch a long half inning, you will always bat the next inning. That half inning for your team. It happens every time.
Your legs wobbly at this
A
point?
little bit.
One-0 pitch coming to Rupp. Outside, 2-0.
See, I've been so impressed by Rupp over the last month. I think he's got excellent mechanics as a hitter. He's got to just battle, you know, the whole idea of catching, like you were just saying. That's a mental grind, physical grind. You see, got to come up and hit after catching that long inning. But he's just so on mechanically right now. Using the middle of the field, can go out and, you know, he just has tremendous confidence right now.
Easy hop for Jose Reyes, and there are 2 outs. A lot of ground ball outs for DeGrom in this ball game. His ground ball percentage is actually up this year compared to last year. Strikeout percentage is a little down, but ground ball percentage is up, which makes pitchers very happy.
That's why it's one of Mike's keys to the game. Makes DeGrom elevate the baseball. It's a good sinker there. There's not a whole lot you can do with it.
You were listening.
Eflin has the only hit, and he's been a little up today with his pitches. See the ground ball percentage, 38%. Terry Collins has been thankful he has had him or Bartolo Colon because of the injuries to Syndergaard, Harvey, Matz from time to time. Galvis, a ground ball back toward the middle, and Walker surrounds it. 1, 2, 3 go the Phils. 3 ground ball outs. That's a 12-pitch 5th inning after a 5-pitch 4th inning. We move to the 6th. Nice day to just hang out and watch a ball game. Tying first half of the season. Genmar reached the All-Star break with 24 saves, tying Steve Bedrosian and Jose Mesa for the Phillies club record. Gomez became the first Philly in history to convert 16 or more saves in the team's first 41 games. He finished the first half with a 2.59 ERA and converted 24 of 26 save opportunities. He's closing games. He's doing it with efficiency. And it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, these guys had the most saves before the All-Star break in Phillies history. 2001 it was Mesa. 87 was Bedrosian. Genmar now has 25 saves after last night's save. He had 24 before the break.
87 the year Bedrock won the Cy Young.
Might have been, and that was the most funny man you could ever imagine.
Really?
Oh, he entertained us on bus rides. We'd all beg him to do his stuff. I can remember he used to imitate a sprinkler in the bus and had the entire bus going just nuts. He'd go, see if I can do it.
Isn't it amazing what you remember about your teammates?
He had a sprinkler down pat. He's back there going.
Tom, remind me not to use that headset tomorrow.
he had about 10 things like that he did to keep us entertained. What a great guy.
He's a pretty determined guy too, huh?
Yes.
1-2 pitch to Loney. Inside, 2-2. Daniel Stumpf, Andrew Bailey. Fly ball left center field. That's where Odubel was playing. Well, Dan Baker just informed us that the Phillie Phanatic was preparing for the Olympic Games.
Strike, thanks to Iggy. So good luck in Rio to the Phillie Phanatic.
Good Iggy. I didn't know they had bowling in the Olympic Games. So now here's this Drupal Cabrera, who's 0 for 2. And it's 1 ball, no strikes. Had to have the Galapagos gang out there because of the beach towel today. They had to be around.
Yeah. Got to represent.
To the right side, Ryan Howard. He'll just take it to the bag. Cabrera was obliging by taking a Sunday stroll up the line.
Sashaying up the line.
That's exactly right. 2 outs. So 2 away. And here's Lagares, who tripled his first time up and then lined out to center his last time up. We do not watch the Mets every day. This guy would probably start for a lot of teams. I mean, not only because of his defense.
Yeah.
I like him. Can run.
He bunts foul, and it's 0-2.
I don't know about that play. 3-0 lead. Guy with some pop. A double and RBI in the game already. 2 outs. Dropping a bunt.
I'd be hard pressed to bunt here.
Just a bit low. It's 1-2. They appeal. No swing, says Tim Timmons. As Eflin hits 100 pitches. I guess he held up.
Yeah.
Fly ball left field. Ashe, sunglasses on, comes walking in, trotting in, I should say, makes the catch. And a 1-2-3 6th inning for Eflin, who has scattered 3 runs and 5 hits over 6 innings today. Treated pine. If it doesn't have this yellow tag, you don't want it. Buy Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. And buy WB Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. Nice to spend a Sunday afternoon with you here at Citizens Bank Park. It'll be Cesar Hernandez, and it looks like Jimmy Paredes out of the on-deck circle to pinch hit for Zach Eflin. Cesar facing Jacob deGrom. He bunts toward third. The ball dies off the edge of the grass and then rolls foul.
That was a good try. Good bunt, either perfect or foul, and he got robbed by the edge of the grass there. The ball caught the lip a little bit and kicked to the left.
Right off the plate.
Phillies are second in the league at bunt hits with 15. And the way Hernandez bunted there is what Pete's been trying to get him to do all year. Not running and bunting, just stopping and trying to push it up the third base line. Or he said, wouldn't it be bad to pull it with him toward first base? Cespedes takes care of Hernandez. And one out. Jimmy Paredes will pitch it. Paredes 5 for 18 as a pinch hitter. The Phillies pitch hitters are hitting 151 this year. They have the 1 home run. Eflin's done after 6, 5 hits, 3 runs, all earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. And Daniel Stumpf will be the next pitcher, it looks like.
It's a good play right there. If he doesn't play in, take advantage of that shift. Just keep it away from the pitcher.
Oh, and 2.
You have to give it to Zach Eflin, who Paredes is pinch hitting for today. Didn't have his best stuff today, but that's a good sign for a younger pitcher. And the fact that he didn't have his best stuff, was able to, 3 runs over 6 innings, threw a lot of pitches, hot day. But that's a good learning experience for him. How to pitch. And he has to pitch when you don't have your best stuff. There were a lot of balls with that slider. Really never made the adjustment on that. Was able to get through, eke his way through 6 innings. It's easy to pitch when you have your best stuff all the time. When you get that adversity, how do you deal with it?
Speaking of having your best stuff, Cole Hamels began his game today with 6 consecutive strikeouts against the Cubs. Swing and a miss. Paredes strikes out. 2 outs. Time now for the Jeep Stump the Fans trivia quiz answer. All right, guys, the question one more time. Which Mets closer had an 0-8 record and 38 saves in 1998? Ben, I think you're up on this one.
It'll be the one and only John Franco.
John Franco is correct. Log back on to Phillies.com to find out if you're the winner of a Phillies prize pack.
St. John's finest.
Way to go, Ben.
1-0 to Odubel. 9 straight retired by deGrom. 1 hit allowed. That was to Zach Eflin. He has struck out 4. And Odubel tries to bunt. So 3 straight hitters trying to bunt. Is that an indication of how tough deGrom is today? Or are they just trying to break him up a little bit here? Break up his rhythm a little bit.
Well, I think Odubel wants to get a knock any way he can get it.
Or that.
Using that fastball above average today is deGrom.
On the outside corner, strike 3 called. 5 strikeouts for deGrom. He sets the Phillies down in order for the 3rd consecutive inning and the 5th time overall. We move to the 7th, 3-0 Mets. Time now for your Delaware Valley Honda Dealers game summary. Today's been all about Jacob deGrom. Just one hit, a single to Zach Eflin. That's it through 6 innings. Curtis Granderson does have a solo home run. Eflin is done after 6. He went 6. He allowed 5 hits and 3 earned runs. And he'll give way to Daniel Stumpf. And Stumpf will face Rene Rivera. And the first pitch is smoked right back through the middle, a base hit. Well, Rivera was looking for something on that first pitch, and he got it.
Yeah, wow. Glad it wasn't a little lower.
Time now for our home field advantage, brought to you by Lowe's. And the bullpen over the last 8 home games for the Phillies, a 2.01 ERA. Guys, they're averaging a strikeout per inning pitch, and that's what you love to see from a bullpen. Getting those strikeouts, it's so big.
Yes, yesterday was a typical game for the bullpen. We scratched out 4 runs, and the bullpen held them after the 6th. Had a lot of games like that this year.
Yeah, some of the guys, you know, Gomez, no runs allowed in the last 8 2/3. Hector Neris, last 13 2/3. He's allowed 2 earned runs. David Hernandez, no runs in his last 4 outings. As deGrom bunts, Rupp says he has it. Sacrifice is successful. Up to second, Rivera. 2-4 on that sack.
Very nice bunt. Very mechanically sound fundamentally.
Keeps that bat head up. Deadens the baseball right out in front of home plate. You talk about those numbers, though. The one that always sticks out is the walks. Only just the 5 walks.
Absolutely. There's no reason to give the opposition any thought that they can come back in a game, you know, if you have a lead. And if you walk them, they're going to think, all right, we got something going here.
He's asking for trouble.
Reyes batting right-handed. He's 1 for 3 left-handed today with an RBI double. Out front, 0-2. Reyes will be followed by Curtis Granderson. Off the end of the bat, Cesar Hernandez floats back and puts it away. Well, Reyes has driven in some runs in this series, but he's had a lot of swings like that. The ball's not popping off his bat the way it used to.
Well, he went out of the strike zone there with a one-handed swing. Kind of fooled by the pitch. He's got a little more pop than Freddie, but he's a guy that I would just keep the ball away from him, just like Freddie, and let him fly out the opposite field until he proves to you he can line the ball the other way.
Granderson takes a breaking ball, and it's 0-1.
Granderson hit the ball hard, a home run, and they walked, had a tough walk. Last time up, first time up, he just missed lining the double fair down the right field line.
I think these lefty on lefty at bats for Daniel Stumpf are very important in his progression. Can he be one of those guys out of the bullpen that can come in and dominate a left-handed hitter?
Well, and he's probably wondering, what do the other teams look like? This is his 5th major league game. It's his 4th against the Mets. Marlins are going to come to town and he's going to say, oh, we do play somebody else.
Yeah.
But you are right. I mean, you need to be able to get these lefties out. Back to the box, flag down by Stumpf. And that'll do it for the Mets here in the 7th. So he allows the leadoff single, but works around that. Time to stretch here in Philadelphia. The Phillies trail at 3-0. Yeah, we've been watching Jacob deGrom this entire day, wondering what is he doing to keep these Phillies hitters off balance. He's retired 10 consecutive. He's only allowed the one hit. That was to Zach Eflin, the Phillies pitcher at the time, back in the third. Well, the San Francisco Giants are coming to town beginning Tuesday, August 2nd. It's all part of a 3-game series. We wrap it up with the Citizens Bank Business Person Special and a Pride of the Phillies print featuring Ryan Howard and Carlos Ruiz on the final day of that series. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. Peter Bourjos will lead it off. Bourjos swings at the first pitch. And Lagares is under it. Well, speaking of the Giants, the last 10 world champions include the Phillies, but the Giants are on that list 3 times. And we mentioned when we were out in San Francisco, boys, it is an even year. 10, 12, 14.
They have a good squad, that's for sure.
They're hoping that they'll get Pence back soon. Pence left his rehab start yesterday early. They say it was just a scar tissue issue, and that they expected him to play either today or tomorrow.
Bourjos flies out on the first pitch. While we were going over the upcoming schedule from the Giants. Don't like that too much when we're down 3-0.
Take a pitch or two.
Well, you know how I feel about that.
Fly ball to right field. Granderson floating back.
That ball was smoked. To just miss that ball. I had some hang time.
He sure did. But he really has been on his game today. 2-0 count there. Cody, you're sitting dead red. It's an 88-mile-an-hour changeup. I guess that's what it was. But it's down in the zone. And just surprised he barreled it as much as he did. I don't think he's missed above the belt yet today.
Well, here's Franco, who's 0 for 2. Swing and a miss, 0-1. He's thrown 6 pitches in the inning, and he's ahead 0-2 to the guy that's up now with 2 outs.
That's one thing he's doing right there. He's painting the outside corner on the knees. That's another ball in the knees right there.
That is a 7-pitch 7th inning for deGrom. We've seen him so many times against the Phillies already in his young career, but this is by far the most dominant he has been. Deals, visit your local Toyota dealer or buy at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. By McDonald's. Stop by McDonald's today and enjoy the new McPick 2 for $2.50 menu. I'm loving it. And buy your local Ford stores. Boy, a great day to be at the ballpark with your family. The Galapagos Gang beach towels, thanks to the folks at Pico, was the giveaway. Get cooled off a little bit before you head into the yard. Time now for a Hyundai defensive play of the game. He's pitched very well today. He's also moved very well off the mounds.
That's right. DeGrom showing some infield athleticism here. Watches the ball into his hand. Makes a nice low throw. Great pick by Loney at first base. And that was Cody Ashe trying to get on base with a bunt. Didn't get away from the pitcher, and that's the Hyundai defensive play of the game. Brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers.
Oh boy, Michael. DeGrom with his arm wrapped. I don't think there's any
I love
reason.
that car.
Yeah, yes, you do. Andrew Bailey has Cespedes foul the first pitch off. Saying there's no reason to think that DeGrom is going to be lifted from this game anytime soon. Joking around with his fellow pitchers in the dugout. Daniel Stumpf, a scoreless inning. He allowed one hit. And the dirt, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Mike, one thing I wanted to ask you about last night, and we didn't have time to get into it, but as that ball goes in the dirt, we're talking about the scuffs on a ball, and you said some of the hitters back when you played would ask the umpire to check the ball.
Yes.
Did any pitchers take offense to that?
Yes.
And
I think it has a lot. It has a lot to do with your status in the game. I knew Pete Rose used to ask to look at the ball a lot.
But he would get away with it.
He would pick his spots. I mean,
that one's off the end of the bat. Borges comes running and puts it away.
I can't imagine me as a young player in the league asking to look at a ball if Bob Gibson's standing on the mound,
right,
with it, ready to deliver a pitch, and I say, hey, can you check that ball?
Understandable,
right? But
you like the ribs the way they were.
But like later on in my career, and maybe there was a young pitcher on the mound, and I saw the ball hit on the ground somewhere. It's still in the game. I'd say, hey, how about checking that ball? I'm coming up maybe between the innings, first hitter of the game, and he threw it in the catcher threw it down to second, and it hit the dirt. Can you check the ball? Now they just throw that ball out.
Right.
So would you do it just to needle somebody? Like, would you do it
No.
to no? Would Pete do it to
But we
needle
didn't
somebody?
we didn't like to hit a ball with a scuff on it.
Right.
We didn't like to. We felt advantage pitcher.
And that's back when pitchers knew how to use a scuff.
Do you remember, speaking of scuff, do you remember the time? It just makes me laugh thinking about it. Remember the time, was it in L.A. when Hrabosky was pitching for
St.
St.
Louis,
and somebody asked, he said he wanted a new ball.
Yes.
And he threw it into the umpire, and the umpire threw him a new ball out, and then he looked at the ball and he said he didn't like that one. Let me have another. The pitchers used to ask for a new ball all the time.
Jamie used to do that all the time.
Back then. The two of them started throwing balls back and forth at each other.
On one hop flag down by Hernandez.
That's one for the ages. That's a rope. Nice play by Cesar right there. But that exchange of these two guys over a new ball. Guys are yelling, "Bring your own ball!"
But I remember Jamie used to do that all the time.
He sure did. He sure did. Even catching Jamie, he'd throw one in. I don't like this one. Throw it back to me. I hand it to the umpire. And I'd be like, all right, they can't be that different.
Loney is 1 for 3. Scored a run back in the second. He's also flied out twice. Hits it sharply through the hole. Base hit. That's his 3rd hit of the series. Monday at 5, Phillies Sports Talk begins the countdown to Eagles training camp under new head coach Doug Peterson. And CSNPhilly.com insider Jessica Camarado has all the latest on the new look Sixers on Philly Sports Talk Monday at 5 on CSN. Cabrera's 0 for 3. He's grounded out a couple of times. Fly to right. Takes outside. 1 ball, no strikes. In the Phillies' bottom of the 8th inning, Howard, Rupp, and Galvis against DeGrom, who's thrown 75 pitches. Kelly looks like he's flying open a little bit with some of these pitches to Cabrera. A little word of advice from Cameron Rupp.
Sometimes Bailey does have the tendency to try and overpower the baseball. That's free and easy. Good location there.
That's a good word of advice by Rupp. I mean, to go out there because he saw it, and that was a totally different delivery right there, wasn't it?
Sure was. It's almost every time. I wouldn't say every time, but it's close that when he overthrows, the ball's elevated. It's up. I'm saying that the letter's up.
You have to eat that quickly today. It is National Ice Cream Day today.
You're kidding.
Yep.
I only had one dip.
In the air to right field. That is well hit, and it's not coming back. A 2-run home run has extended the lead for the Mets. It's now 5-0. Well, that may be the cherry on top of the sundae right there.
Yeah, it looked like we had another easy inning. Couple pitches away from getting out of it. Loney singles. Cabrera with 2 strikes. Boom. There it is. Fastball right there in the old left-handed danger zone.
Cameron set up away. I don't know if he could have center cut that one anymore.
That home run for Cabrera, his 13th of the season.
Another 2-out rally for the Mets. Did that back in the 5th.
Well, they have scored all their runs today with 2 outs. 2 outs when Lagares tripled in the 2nd inning. 2-out home run by Granderson in the 3rd. The run scored in the 5th inning with 2 outs, and the 2 runs score here with 2 outs. It's now 126 home runs for the Mets on the year. 2-2. Strike 3 called, and that'll wrap up the 8th inning. But the Mets tack on a couple more runs on the 2-run home run by Asdrubal Cabrera. On to the bottom of the 8th. Phillies certainly have their work cut out for them. has 2 3-ball counts. They came against the first 2 hitters of the game. Since then, he's only thrown 21 balls out of the strike zone.
He really has settled down everything below the belt. Started mixing a few more off-speed pitches later in the ball game, but he has been down, down, and down, and they are your GMC precision plays of the game.
All right, so he begins the bottom of the 8th inning with only 75 pitches. And he delivers a strike to Ryan Howard. That was a pitcher's pitch right there. He's retired 13 straight. The only hit is the single by Eflin. Howard is grounded out and struck out looking. Speaking of the hit, the Phillies were held to only 1 hit in a game, with a lone hit coming from a pitcher. The last time back on August 13, 2010, it was Cole Hamels, a single off R.A. Dickey. Hamels pitched a complete game that day. That was a heck of a day for Hamels, but the Phillies just weren't scoring against R.A. Dickey. There was a period of time where they just could not hit R.A. Dickey. Two and 2 to Howard.
It's a good take right there. Got to be looking fastball late in the game, leading off an inning. 2-2, gets a slider, lays off. Well, here's your fastball, Ryan. No.
And he walks him. First walk of the day for DeGrom. We just mentioned he only had the 2 3-ball counts to the first 2 batters until that one. Dan Worthen's on the horn. That walk has sent up a red flag.
Red flag.
That is, I don't know who makes that call, the pitcher or the catcher, but
if I'm Terry Collins, I'm fining him. You're getting fined for that.
You throw him a fastball right down the middle, 2-2 and 3-2, and if he hits it off the Sunoco sign out there, it doesn't matter. You've made the right pitch.
Jerry Blevins warming up. DeGrom trying to throw his second 1-hitter of his career. Last one came, you saw that note against the Cardinals last year. Here's Cameron Rupp, and Rupp takes upstairs, and Rene Rivera out to talk.
A little time for the bullpen. They got to cover their mouths with their gloves because everybody in the ballpark is reading their lips.
You see right through that mask.
Off the hands, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Steady diet of sinkers and balls inside on Cameron Rupp. .65% heaters today.
Wow.
Two and 2. 94-mile-an-hour fastball
On the outside corner. Great pitch.
And Ruff is down looking.
That's nasty. He's made about 8 or 10 pitches right there in that exact same spot. I don't know whether it's Rivera framing them perfectly or what, but these pitches, it's almost like he's throwing them from the first base side of the mound, and so might have been off the plate a little bit. We're getting calls. Did you see Rivera pull it in a little bit? But just great pitches when you get the call.
Well, that strikeout of Rupp is the 6th strikeout of the day for DeGrom. Galvis is 0 for 2.
Sorry, Tom. His follow through and release. I mean, he just really gets that full extension. We always talk about extension from an offensive standpoint, from a swing.
Here's the distribution of outs. 7 groundouts, now 9 flyouts after the 3 in the 7th inning. DeGrom, who's working on 11 days rest. 1 ball and 1 strike. Out towards second. This could be 2, 4, 6, 3. Still a 1-hit shutout. 2 base runners overall for Jacob DeGrom. We've completed 8 innings here in Philadelphia. We'll move to the 9th. The Phillies down 5-0. With the Los Angeles Dodgers, it wraps up on the 18th with a post-game concert with country music star Chase Wright. Don't forget, Chase Utley returns to Citizens Bank Park for that 3-game series. Make plans now and order your tickets at Phillies.com. Brett Oberholzer here in the top of the 9th inning. So far, so good for Oberholzer over the last handful of outings. And he will face Rene Rivera, then DeGrom, and then top of the order. First pitch is low, 1 ball, no strikes. Rivera is 1 for 3. He singled his last time up. He's also grounded 1 in front of the plate. And he's lined out. Two and 1. DeGrom in the on-deck circle, 89 pitches today. Good off-speed pitch.
I think that's one pitch that has been very effective for Brett, is that changeup. He was throwing it earlier in the season, but it seems like it's at a better speed, lower in the low 80s, with better movement.
When he's on and effective, I think he could even throw it. And there's not a lot of guys that can do this. I don't think. Anyway, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's able to throw the changeup on both sides of the plate, too.
Yes.
Sometimes guys, when they throw a changeup, it's going to a certain spot. But he's able to throw it in, and it comes back. I don't know if it's just his style.
I don't know many left-handers that live with the changeup throwing in to right-handed.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I thought he against the Rockies the other day. I thought he was effective with that, honestly.
Jamie used to do that. I remember one time he did it to Gary Sheffield. He said, "I'm going to throw this changeup inside. I want to see how far you can hit it foul." I said, "All right, Jaime."
And
He hit it far.
He hit it far and foul. I literally would go out and say, you know, he put down a number of signs. He said, "Well, I do want the changeup, but I want it inside."
And you're like, I don't think this is a good
why?
idea.
He goes, "I want to see how far he hits it foul."
Oh, I love when we make fun of Jamie's laugh. Here's the 2-2 to Rivera. Because every once in a while he's listening.
this guy is really serving up some souvenirs here to the stands over
He
here
is.
on the right.
He's very benevolent.
He said it was just a very easy, effective way for him to get ahead in the count. I said, "All right."
Curveball waved at, 1 out. Now I wonder, not to talk about Jamie's pitch style, how much that sort of evolved. If he thought that when his career began, because I think that's a tightrope to walk. I'm going to get ahead by throwing a changeup in.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something I think he started to do. He always had a good feel for that changeup, but he started to do it more and more as he got a little bit older. It got so good where he could throw it in, out, up, down, wherever he wanted.
Well, you could hear the number of Met fans that are here today, the response for DeGrom as he's introduced. He's 1 for 2 with a run scored. One ball, 1 strike.
It's amazing how these teams over the last 10-15 years have developed this rivalry. Not that we didn't have one back in the day, but you know how one team had the upper hand and then the other team gets the upper hand and it cycles back and forth.
It really does. It really has.
Big part of it was when the Mets had that lead, right? What year was that? They had the lead and the Phillies beat them
07.
several times down the stretch.
All began with Kyle Kendrick in the summer of 07. He was the one who started that stretch. And DeGrom, I think, content to go down on strikes, head back to the dugout, get himself ready for the bottom of the 9th inning. Jose Reyes will give him some time to get back to the dugout. One ball and one strike.
Well, Reyes is hitting right now. Give me a quick review of the timeline of his movement. Do you have it in
Reyes?
Yeah.
As far as
Well, Mets and then Toronto.
no, Miami.
Miami.
Yeah, signed a big free agent contract.
That's right.
With the Marlins. The Mets sort of put their money into David Wright more so than Reyes at the time. Ground ball to third. Then the trade after a year to the Blue Jays.
Right.
And then eventually Blue Jays to the Rockies. Rockies released him after his suspension was over with this year. Back to the Mets.
Mets pick him up.
Bottom of the ninth, DeGrom going for the one-hit shutout. The ninth inning, we start out in the third inning. Here's Granderson. Bam.
It's a hanging fastball up there by Zach Eflin and deposit out in the Phillies bullpen 415 feet away. And then in the eighth inning, 2-2 cutter. Cuts right into the barrel of Asdrubal Cabrera. He deposits it in the right field seats for a two-run homer to make it 5-0. And they are your WB Mason deliveries of the game.
Well, now we go to the bottom of the ninth inning, and the Phillies down 5-0. And Jacob deGrom, who has been effective today, he has lived down in the zone most of the day. Starts Cesar Hernandez off, and Cesar swings at the first pitch and fouls it down the left field line.
Well, I guess when you only have one hit, you might as well go to hacking, right?
The one hit came back in the third off the bat of Zach Eflin. Low ball one. R.A. Dickey, the last one-hit complete game. We talked about it back in August of 2010. And now it's 1-2. You know, it's a warm day, and he just doesn't even look like there's a drip of sweat on him. Andres Blanco is out on deck. Pitcher spot is due up next. 2-2 to Hernandez. And he fouls it off the railing in front of the Phillies dugout. They've got Familia warming up in the bullpen.
Not so sure why they're doing that.
Ground ball right side. Loney's got it. And DeGrom's there to cover.
Yes, he is. He is smooth. Nice play.
He is, isn't he?
And Cesar was hustling the entire way. I mean, he put a little pressure on them, even as casual as they made that look. But there's one out.
Familia pitched Friday.
Familia pitched on Friday.
There you see the replay. Loney go down to one knee. Nice and casual. No reason to hurry. DeGrom covering. Nice exchange.
I know Mark Teixeira's had a ton of gold gloves over there at first base, but there's something about a left-handed first baseman that they just look smoother. They just do.
saying that because Tag, your son, is a first baseman?
Tag is a first baseman, and he is wrong-handed.
Rene Rivera takes that foul ball.
It's always like Rico Brogna. I mean, you talk about as smooth as they come.
That ball pinballed off both feet.
Ooh. I'll guarantee it hurt the right one more.
Yeah.
Be an ice bag on the bus right there.
Boy, he's taking a long time. Ray Ramirez, the athletic trainer, just now comes out. There's the 0-1 to Blanco. Outside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Odubel Herrera is on deck. Blanco hitting .266 with 3 homers and 18 RBIs. And he lets that one go by. It's 2-1. Remarkably, if he's able to finish this off, it'll be his first complete game. As good as he's been, as dominant as he's been.
In his career?
In his career. Swing and a miss, 2-2. The one hit that he allowed, the game where he allowed just 1 hit, that was 8 innings. He didn't finish it off. '100th pitch of the day, and it's a 2-2. Swing and a miss, 2 outs. 7 strikeouts for DeGrom. Oh, now they're going to say that Blanco got a piece of it? I guess so.
New life. We'll take a look here.
That time he hit it twice. That replay wasn't really definitive as to whether Blanco hit it. Let's watch it again.
Maybe the home plate umpire Pat Hoberg heard something.
Oh my goodness, he didn't
Yeah,
hit
that
that
was
at
a
all.
miss.
Sure looked like a miss.
Back toward the middle, and Walker's got it. 2 outs. So a fresh baseball for DeGrom, and now Odubel Herrera, who has flied out, grounded out, and struck out. It's a 6 strikeout day for DeGrom. He's allowed 1 hit. It came against Zach Eflin back in the 3rd. That's it. Franco hit a ball hard. That ended the 4th inning.
Boy, he's kept his foot on the gas the whole game, hasn't he?
Yes. Phillies have not been shut out in more than a month. It was June 11th against Tanner Roark against the Nationals. That was the last time. 0-1 to Odubel Herrera. And the pitch from DeGrom. Fouls it back. It's 0-2. That fastball was at 88. Maybe a changeup?
Maybe. Well, when you're not going well, doesn't it seem like it's always 0-2?
Has seemed that way today. DeGrom's got his signs. And now the 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. The ball game is over. A 1-hit shutout for Jacob DeGrom. The first shutout of his career. First complete game of his career.